News Update Coronavirus April 12, 2020. Note, this is a collaborative video made between Travel for All Fanpage and Knowledge of Coronavirus channel. Please respectfully welcome everyone. The following is the remarkable news most on April 12 as follows. 1. U.S. News. President Donald Trump called on Americans 8 days ago to prepare for the most difficult week of the coronavirus pandemic, but for Mr. Trump himself, next week could be more difficult. Intense cross-pressure inside the White House. Republican business interests, economic advisors, and conservatives seeking to end the shutdown have halted normal life, and 16 million Americans have lost their jobs. Public health authorities warn that early movement risks a second tsunami infection with escalating loss and deeper economic damage. Mr. Trump said Friday that a new council, consisting of business and medical figures, will be announced next week to help him make the biggest decision I've ever made about loosening the measures. The announcement came as Congress continued to argue over the next phase of COVID-19 financial relief. About tracking COVID-19 cases in the U.S. last updated April 12, 2020 at 11:30 a.m. ET. Source: Johns Hopkins University Center for Systems Science and Engineering. The number of cases infected in the U.S. is 530,830. The number of deaths is 20,646. New York has become the epicenter of the country's outbreak, with 181,825 confirmed cases and 8,650 deaths so far. When adjusted for population, that translates to roughly 935 known cases and 44 deaths for every 100,000 residents. 2. England News. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been discharged from hospital after 7 days of treatment for coronavirus infection, but has not yet returned to work immediately, the Prime Minister said. In a statement published by No. 10 Downing Street, Mr. Boris Johnson thanked the medical staff at St. Thomas's Hospital. The Prime Minister's thanks came as the number of deaths related to COVID-19 in the UK exceeded 10.00 in the case of Sunday, April 12, with 737 new hospital deaths linked to the coronavirus on April 12, lower than the previous 24 hours. Statistics show that, so far, the number of deaths in the UK is 10,612. 3. Germany News. Early testing will be assessed as an important factor. In testing, Germany is far ahead of other European countries, including the UK. During the week to April 4, 132 German laboratories averaged 116,655 tests for count every day. Having multiple tests at the beginning of a pandemic means that many positive cases are found early. It helps officials find people who have been in contact with the ill to slow the spread of the virus. In Germany, the mortality rate has been relatively low, but this may still change. To date, Germany has more than 113,525 cases and more than 2,373 deaths, according to the Robert Koch Institute, Germany's leading public health agency. If Germany ultimately has a lower death rate than European countries, early testing will be assessed as an important factor. 4. The corona pandemic will make global economic growth extremely negative this year, the head of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, warned. Blockade orders imposed by governments forced many companies to close and lay off employees. Earlier this week, a United Nations study found that 81% of the world's workforce, including 3.3 billion people, were confronted with a workplace where they were partially or completely shut down because of the epidemic. Last month, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, warned that the global economy will take years to recover. Secretary General Angel Gura said that the economies were in the greatest shock after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks or the 2008 financial crisis. 5. News from Spain. The government in Spain is preparing to allow some non-essential workers, including construction and manufacturing techniques, to return to work on Monday. Spain recorded the lowest daily death toll in the last 17 days on Friday, with 605 deaths. According to the latest figures, Spain currently has 15,843 deaths due to viruses. However, the Spanish government calls on people to continue maintaining social spacing during this weekend's Easter holiday. In Italy, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte extended the country blockade order until May 3, warning that efforts should not be lost until now. 6. Despite the blockade, the world still celebrates Easter. Christians around the world continue to celebrate Easter, experimenting with new forms of worship while many countries are blocked. Some priests preach in front of cameras in empty churches, while parishioners attend the ceremony by staring at screens from their homes this Easter. But in other countries, the tradition continues as usual, ignoring stricter calls for containment of the coronavirus pandemic. 7. Removing blockade orders too soon could cause a deadly disease outbreak again, the head of the World Health Organization, WHO, warned. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said nations should be cautious about easing blockade measures, even as some countries are struggling due to the effects of these orders on the economy. Already 1.6 million people have been infected with COVID-19 globally and 101,000 have died. Speaking at an online meeting on the virus, Mr. Tedros said there was a welcome slowdown of the disease in several European countries. He said that WHO is working with governments to develop strategies to loosen restrictive measures, but this should not be done too soon. 8. Wuhan City, the capital of Hubei province, reopened to the world after 11 weeks of being held captive to stop the spread of the new strain of coronavirus. As a result of the epidemic, China now implements mass diplomacy worldwide. However, journalist Frederick Lemater in Le Monde on April 2020 commented that there are many factors that show that this crisis, although epidemiological, diplomatic and economic, is serious enough to cause political tensions in China. The widespread outrage among Chinese citizens in the face of a lack of transparency, withholding information when the coronavirus outbreak broke out, has sparked the long-running insatiable discontent when Xi Jinping removed the no-limits limit. For more than 2 terms, during the 19th Party Congress in October 2017. 9. Some statistical data on COVID-19 epidemic situation in South Asia April 12, 2020. India has 8,356 cases of infection, including 273 deaths. Pakistan has 5,038 cases and 86 deaths. Afghanistan confirmed 607 people infected, of which 19 died. Sri Lanka recorded 198 cases, including 7 deaths. Bangladesh has 621 cases, including 34 deaths. Maldives reported 20 infections and there were no deaths. Nepal has 12 cases of infection and no deaths. Bhutan recorded 5 infections and no deaths. Updated at 16H30 on 12/4/2020 about the world situation in the world. 1,787,069 people have the disease. 109,288 people died, of which Spain 163,027 people are infected. 16,606 people died. Italy, 152,271 people are infected, 19,468 people died. Germany, 125,452 people infected, 2,871 people died. 10. The mainland of China recorded the number of COVID-19 infections increased from 81,953 to 82,052 on April 11, including 63 cases without symptoms. The number of deaths in the country is now 3,339. 11. Canada is paying heavily to subsidize its workers. The Canadian Parliament passes a multi-billion-dollar salary subsidy program into businesses facing difficulties. The salary subsidy program, worth more than $52 billion, will subsidize 75% of wages for businesses so that employees can receive up to $600 per week for 12 weeks. The condition for receiving the subsidy is that the turnover of the business decreases by 15% in March 2020 or by 30% in April or May 2020. 12. The European medical equipment market is in turmoil. All business principles are reversed. The brokers were so rampant that the European Commission complained. 13. Fearing economic disaster, the Italian government was urged to reduce its blockade. Many Italian companies and scholars are urging the government to reopen factories to avoid an economic disaster. Attention is pouring in to Italy because it is the country with the highest number of deaths from COVID-19 and also the first Western country to apply strong blockade measures such as Wuhan. A similar debate is taking place across the globe. How long and how restrictive measures should last and to prevent pandemics and prevent damage reversible to the economy. 14. On March 19, when there were only 28 cases, New Zealand decided to say no to all foreigners even though the economy relies heavily on tourism. On March 23, when the number of cases surged to 102, Ardern announced that people had 48 hours to prepare for a large-scale blockade and testing order. New Zealand is in a 4-week blockade nationwide with strict restrictions that prohibit people from going out unless to the supermarket. Since then, the number of new infections in New Zealand has continued to increase, but in particular there have been no reported cases for 2 days. On April 11, New Zealand reported that it had recorded 2 more deaths from COVID-19. Although this figure is low compared to other countries, this is the largest increase in a day in the country Kiwi to date. The total number of deaths in the country is now 4, while the total number of infections is 1,035. New Zealand is currently in a state of blockade nationwide. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of coronavirus, channel and travel for all fantage respectfully, and see you in the next video.